He said, I'll love you till I die. She told him, you'll forget in time. As the years crept slowly by, she still preyed upon his mind. Kept some letters by his bed, dating 1962. He had underlined in red every single I love you. Kept her picture on his wall. Went half crazy now and then. He still loved her through it all, just hoping she'd come back to him. I went to see him just today. Oh, but I didn't see no tears. All dressed up to go away. First time I've seen him smile in years. He stopped loving her today. They placed a wreath upon his door, and soon they'll carry him away. He stopped loving her today. You know, she came to see him one last time. Oh, and we all wondered if she would. And it kept running through my mind. This time, he's over her for good. He stopped loving her today. They placed a wreath upon his door, and soon they'll carry him away. He stopped loving her today. That's the saddest song in country music. George Jones, 1980. He died earlier this year. I like old country songs. I like old blues songs, old folk songs, especially the ones that memorialize someone who died tragically. Fictional people like the guy in this song, or even real people like Casey Jones, Stagger Lee. Folk ballads are like little plays. It's Death of a Salesman, Joe Turner's Come and Gone, you name it. But where did all this serious storytelling come from? These tragic narratives meant to help us face death. One theory that goes around, that's been around since 1910, comes from William Ridgway's book, The Origin of Tragedy. And that's the theory of tomb worship. It goes like this. Way back in the ancient mists of time, you've got this pre-literate, prehistoric society. And in that society, a pre-literate, prehistoric individual performs an outstanding feat, like he kills a bear and saves a village. But in so doing, he dies. He gets buried. His tomb becomes a sacred place, a memorial, a monument. Every year, people get together at the tomb to reenact the great feat that the hero committed and sing songs about it. In these performances, these dance macabres, are the beginning of theater. Ridgway's smoking gun confirming his theory is the pile of rocks in the middle of the ancient Greek stage, which he concludes is a vestigial tomb. As the plays become more fictional and more secular, this vestigial tomb gets replaced with a more dramatic kind of reminding the audience that this is about commemorating the dead. Things like having characters lamenting for the dead and the showing of a dead body. Try and think of a drama that does not have a lamentation for the dead or the showing of a dead body at some point. Tennessee Williams was a master of this. So was August Wilson. So was Shakespeare. Intozaki Shange, Lillian Hellman, you name it. Think again of Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller, about a heroic suicide and a final gathering at the anonymous middle-class hero's tomb. These elements are supposed to invoke a sense of fear and pity in the audience, adding up to a catharsis, a purging of these feelings of fear and pity. Just like cemeteries. Earlier this year, I took a tour of Laurel Hill Cemetery here in Philadelphia. And in the visitor's packet they gave me was this list of all the notables who were buried there. Wouldn't it be great to be a notable? I wonder who all the unnotables are. I mean, somewhere at Laurel Hill, is there a list of all the people who didn't make the brochure? People who were shortlisted as notable, later rejected, the insignificant people, the irrelevant. Raise your hand if you can name both of your parents. I'm pretty sure they're your parents anyway. Raise your hand if you can name at least 2 grandparents. Raise your hand if you can name at least 1 great-grandparent. Raise your hand if you can name at least 1 great-great-grandparent. Raise your hand if you can name at least 1 great-great-great-grandparent. You 2 are exceptions. For most of us, it tops out at about great-great-great. That's how long of a shelf life we all have before we become unnotable. One of the Laurel Hill notables is George Henry Boker, a formerly notable 19th century playwright. Boker's father was a banker. He was involved in some scandal, later exonerated. Junior writes a book defending his father posthumously, and guess what it's called? A Book of the Dead. Well, if you don't know, I had a show 2 years ago called Beautiful Zion, A Book of the Dead, and it was about my dead father. I know. Spooky. Granted, Boker was defending his dead daddy, whereas I was attacking, but still, clearly, Boker and I are psychically connected. Boker's most famous play was Francesca da Rimini, written in 1853. You might remember Francesca from Dante's Inferno, written in the 14th century. What happens is, Francesca is forced into a political marriage with a guy named Lanciotto Malatesta, a brave but severely deformed man. In order to trick her into marrying him, Lanciotto gets his handsome brother Paolo to stand in for him. Francesca falls madly in love with Paolo and isn't aware of the deception until after the wedding, but by then it's too late. They carry on their passionate love affair behind Lanciotto's back. And when he catches them, he flies into a jealous rage and kills them both. In Dante's Inferno, they wind up in hell for committing the sin of adultery. That's how Dante ends up meeting them. He's moved by the encounter and by their deep love, which survives even in the face of intense suffering. Meanwhile, Lanciotto's downstairs in another level of hell being tortured, along with Cain and all the other people who've murdered their brothers throughout history. There have been lots of retellings of this tragic romance. What made Boker's play different is that instead of blaming Francesca as the temptress, he instead focuses on the fraternal love between the brothers as the cause of the love triangle. The tragedy of Paolo and Francesca becomes a tragedy of Paolo and Lanciotto. Boker was proud of his changes. He wrote a letter to a friend in 1853 in which he said, "You will laugh, but the thing is so. Of course you know the story, everyone does, but you nor anyone else do not know it as I have created it." My favorite line in the play is when Francesca says to a hesitant Paolo after the first guilt-ridden kiss, "Come, love, the present whispers joy to us. We'll hear the voiceless future when its time arrives." The play opened in New York and Philadelphia, closed quickly, and was forgotten for 29 years. And then in 1882, it got a Chicago premiere with Paolo being played by one Otis Skinner.
a major star who would in 1911 co-found Plays and Players Theater here in Philadelphia, along with his wife, Maude Durbin Skinner, an actress and screenwriter during the silent era. Otis Skinner was so affected by this play that he produced it in Chicago yet again, 19 years later in 1901, this time playing Lanciotto. That same year, he paid to have the script published, and he wrote an eloquent introduction to it. He loved Boker's play and was determined to make it immortal. Today, it's forgotten. You cannot put words in the mouth of the voiceless future. That day at Laurel Hill, I stumbled upon 2 different sets of Wood family graves. Well, if you saw my show 2 years ago, Beautiful Zion, A Book of the Dead, you know that it was about my inviting the audience to help me reach out and contact my dead biological father on a Ouija board. I purposely did not give Bio-Dad's name during the show so that we could use it as confirmation. If we had gotten an entity claiming to be him, I'd see if it got the name right. If it did, I'd know I had the real McCoy and not a demonic imposter. Between you and me, now that that show's over, I can let you know that Bio-Dad's last name was Wood. That's what made me take these pictures that day at Laurel Hill, on the off chance that they might be relatives. If I had not been born a bastard, my last name would be Wood right now. Jeffrey Wood. Maybe my nickname would be Woody. Hey Woody, what's up? You don't know Jeff Woody Wood? Great guy. Great guy. One of them, William B. Wood, is a Laurel Hill notable. He was a 19th century actor and producer in Philly and Baltimore, where there were Ouija boards. His first job was in New York City as a clerk. My first job in New York City was as a clerk. His wife was an actress from Boston who moved to New York City and met her husband. My wife is a dancer from Boston who moved to New York City and met her husband. They settled in Philly. We've settled in Philly. He was born in Canada. I've been to Niagara Falls. I'm just going to say I am the reincarnation of William B. Wood. You know, all this talk about my ancestry, my origins, my dead father leads me back to how I became a grave digger. That is, a person who digs looking at graves in the first place. When I was little, we spent a few years living in my ancestral homeland of rural southwestern Virginia, corn and tobacco country. I lived with my mom and my grandmother in a little town called Lynch Station and a house that we rented from the Updike funeral home next door. No one had lived in the house for years and they weren't used to having tenants around, especially kids. I was kind of fascinated by the comings and goings. There was nothing to do out there in the sticks. We were so far out, the sun had to be piped in, as my grandmother liked to say. So, watching the funeral home kind of became my hobby. Right across the road from it, at the edge of the cow pasture, sat these 2 rows of sample tombstones they sold. At first it looked like a cemetery, but then you realized all the tombstones were blank, like some kind of weird symbolic dream you might have. Your name here. I used to ride my bike through them, run around through them, and there were these storage sheds all over our property where they kept the funeral home supplies. Stretchers, blankets, jars of formaldehyde. One of the shacks was the stonecutter's workshop where they engraved the tombstones. And they never thought to lock any of this stuff up. I used to run around in and out of these shacks whenever I felt like it. I was backstage at the funeral home. I had an upstairs bedroom, and my window looked across directly into the embalming room 30 yards away. And they never thought to close the curtains. At night, I could go up and look through my telescope, and I could see the body laid out on the slab. Just the upper half, mind, kind of a medium shot from the chest up, but I could see them washing the hair, putting on the makeup, getting it dressed. And whenever they brought in a new body, I could see that too. They had these nondescript cargo vans they'd use to go collect corpses from the hospital morgue. My grandmother and I would stand in the kitchen and peek out and watch while they backed the van up to the embalming room, opened the doors, and brought in a body on a stretcher covered in a white sheet. Those Those were wonderful times. Things took a turn south when our new puppy Josh entered the picture. My older sister came and lived with us for a while, and she brought with her this half German Shepherd, half Husky mix, and all that dog did was dig and dig and dig. He dug holes all over the yard. We used to have this chicken coop out back that we kept him in. He would tunnel his way out and go running off. Ancient Mr. Updike, who owned the funeral home, hated that dog. He used to call him the excavator. Well, one time Josh had been gone for a few hours and we were starting to get worried. Then here he comes trotting up the road, wagging his tail with a dead bloody chicken in his teeth. We're all mortified. A few minutes later, there's a knock at the door. My grandmother opens it, and there on our front porch, gingham dress, pink bedroom slippers, stands Doodlebug, with his hand out, demanding $2 for his dead chicken. Doodlebug was our nearest neighbor. He was an old man who dressed like a woman. Not in a glitzy drag queen kind of way, but in a crazy old hillbilly kind of way. He lived with another crazy old hillbilly who everybody said was his brother/husband. I was never sure. I guess they were the redneck version of Paolo and Lanciotto. But there's a reason I tell you about Josh and the dead bloody chicken. See, usually the funeral home people went and got bodies from the hospital. But when someone was killed in a car accident, they drove straight to the scene and brought the body directly to the funeral home. And whenever that happened, the sheet would be red, soaked in blood. Well, one time we're all hanging out on the side porch and they back a van up to the embalming room, open the doors. Josh jumps down, runs over there, hops up into the van, and comes trotting back across the field to our house, dragging this long bloody sheet in his teeth. We're all horrified. The van driver sees him, comes running and screams and gets into a tug of war with Josh, who thinks it's a game. My mom goes running down and grabs Josh by the collar to try to make him let go. Blood's getting all over everybody. We had to hose down Josh. A month or so after that, Mr. Updike declined to renew our lease. He Stopped Loving Her Today was the #1 country song in the nation that year. I remember sitting in the living room with my grandmother, watching George Jones on TV accepting the award. It was also the year we got the hell out of the station in search of less morbid real estate. Best real estate at Laurel Hill is Millionaire's Row. It's a little street full of ornate mausoleums overlooking the Schuylkill River. One of them even has Tiffany glass and an eternal flame. Right next to Millionaire's Row, and kind of a brand new extension of it, sits the recently installed monument of legendary sportscaster Harry Collis. I'm just glad it's not tacky and phallic, and that it blends in so nicely with the elegant Victorian architecture all around it. Seriously though, if he can have something that garish, so can I. Or I can at least dream about it. If I could be buried on Millionaire's Row, and if Alexander Milne Calder could design my monument, I would want a 15-foot high bust of my head. Kind of like William Penn's head atop City Hall, which Calder also designed. My eyeglass lenses, Tiffany glass. You enter through my open mouth. Inside I'm buried vertically instead of horizontally, propped up in one corner. And instead of an eternal flame, there'd be a fire burning. There would be a year-long waiting list, like there is for people who want to camp out in the Grand Canyon. Basically, you get to pay to spend an evening camped out inside my head. Kind of like you're doing now. And around midnight, an anonymous grave digger would come around and serenade you in the moonlight. You wouldn't see him. He'd be off in the dark somewhere. But you'd hear his voice echoing across the boneyard. Miss Collins weep Miss Collins moan. What made her son Louis leave his home? Angels laid him away. Angels laid him away. They laid him 6 feet under the clay. Angels laid him away. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard to see poor Collins in that new graveyard? Angels laid him away. When they heard that Luce was dead, all the women full dressed in red. Angels laid him away. Angels laid him away. They laid him 6 feet under the clay. Angels laid him away. Bob shot one and Luce shot two. Shot Cole Collins, shot him through and through. Angels laid him away. Angels laid him away. They laid him 6 feet under the clay. Angels laid him away. Everybody, angels laid him away. They laid him 6 feet under the clay. Angels laid him away. One more time. Angels laid him away. They laid him 6 feet under the clay. Angels laid him away. My first brush with the funerary came at the age of 3. I remember it like it was 43 years ago. I was home with my mom and my aunt playing in the living room floor. And all of a sudden there's this frantic knocking. My mom opens the door and there stands Alan Gray, this 9-year-old from 2 doors down, and he's sobbing. I don't see him, but I can hear him. And he says, "You got to come and help me. My sister Robin shot herself." And then there was a whirlwind, and I was all alone in the quiet house. The next thing I remember is my mom and my aunt running back and forth, getting towels from our bathroom, hurdling the chain link fences between our houses. And then there was the wake, my first wake. My artificial father, who turned out later to only be my older brother and sister's father, was carrying me. It was dark. I remember the feel of his rough, unshaven face against mine, the smell of his cologne, his short staccato breaths as he walked and smoked, smog curling out of his nostrils. I don't know how he and I were chosen to represent the family. Deadbeat ex-husband, bastard child who wasn't even his, but there we were, the 2 outsiders. Next, he sat me down at the back of a room. And I remember catching glimpses of Alan's 14-year-old sister, Robin, lying in her open casket. Their mother, Ruby, was bent over it, crying and talking to her. Talking to her. That confused me for years. If you're talking to somebody, that means they're alive, right? I thought at night they must slam the lid shut and make her spend the night in there as some kind of punishment. And in the morning they open the lid, they talk to her some more, cry over her some more, and then slam it shut again. No wonder I'm claustrophobic. Later I remember it was raining, and I was standing outside the funeral home in a phone booth while my pretend father called my mom to tell her we were done. Years later, Ruby died of cancer. Her husband, Marvin, died of a heart attack. And their son, Alan, at the tender age of 48, just 2 years ago, blew his brains out. exactly like his sister Robin had done all those years ago. Nobody knows why. Whole family gone. My first real funeral came 5 years after Robin's wake. My mom's best friend Lola's daughter Debbie in her 20s was found tied to her bed, raped, and strangled to death. It made headlines. They never caught the killer. Her death was particularly tragic for Lola because her husband had been killed a few years before that by laying his head on a railroad track late at night. Suicide by cold train. At Debbie's open casket funeral, she was wearing green, and she was beautiful. I remember feeling bored. I kept tugging at my mom's sleeve, asking her when it would be over, so we could go home and she could make me some Campbell's chicken soup for lunch. Lola became an acute alcoholic. She married another acute alcoholic named Larry, this skinny, mustachioed mechanic from Brooklyn who stuck out like a sore thumb with that accent in southwestern Virginia. I hated going to Lola's house. It stank. It was filthy and crawling with cockroaches. They collected welfare and all they did was sit and drink all day. It's the only way they could laugh. My mom liked to remind me that it was because Lola had had a very hard life and that our visits brought her a little cheer. She liked seeing me. Years later, they found Lola dead at the bottom of her living room steps with her neck broken. They ruled it an accident. But my mom always believed Larry pushed her. My next brush with the funerary came when I was 19. It was the year before I went to New York, NYU, New York City, to go to film school. I was still working part-time, washing dishes, making pizzas. And one day I'm at the mall, and I run into this guy I went to high school with named Jerry Burns. Turns out Jerry Burns is not flipping burgers and washing dishes like the rest of us dorks. He's landed a job at the cemetery. He gets to drive the hearses, they give him suits to wear to the funerals, and he gets to watch the cremations. He goes into all this detail about how there's a window where you can stand and watch the bodies burn. Oh. Eyeballs exploding first with a loud pop pop. Oh. Head is always the last to go, finally cracking open like an overworked iron pot, spewing blood and brains all over the walls where they cook and fall charred back into the flames. All I could think was, man, Jerry Burns has a cool job. And it was around that time that I first tried reaching out to the netherworld. I was at my friend Robin's New Year's Eve party with a bunch of people. We were stoned and drunk, sitting around a candlelit kitchen table in the dark. The mood was right for the conversation to turn toward seances. Somebody said, too bad we don't have a Ouija board. And somehow, instinctively, I knew what to do. I asked Robin for a blank sheet of paper. On it, I wrote A to Z, yes and no, the numbers 1 through 10. And for a planchette we used, I had just the thing, a credit card. Turned upside down, the raised letters gave it a very small surface area. One corner we designated the pointer. My friends Adam, Scott, and Marietta all sat around it, each of them placing just one finger on the credit card. I stood aside as the questioner and said, "We come here tonight in a spirit of peace, eager to make new friends. Is there anyone out there who'd like to speak with us tonight?" And right away it moves purposefully back and forth from A to Z, over and over again. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last. Oh, really? You're Jesus Christ? Yes. Now, I have been through this enough times to have learned a few things about spirits, or subconscious ideomotor impulses, depending on your beliefs. You throw open the door, and they rush in like rioters raiding a dressing room, and they don whatever costumes they find. Jesus, Satan, Mark Twain. You never know who you're going to get when you throw open the Pandora's box that is your dream world. You think a Hindu gets Jesus, Satan, and Mark Twain on a Ouija board? They don't. I've checked. The next question to ask is, where are you now? And 9 times out of 10, the answer I get is Zion, Z-I-O-N. And they're not talking about Israel. They're using an old Christian term for heaven, taken, of course, from the Hebrew Bible. We're marching to Zion, beautiful, beautiful Zion, marching upward to Zion, the beautiful city of God. So anyway, the board's really cooking now. I point to Adam and say, how old is Adam? The board would get it right. How old is Scott? The board would get it right. Pretty soon we get bored with watching it guess ages. So I decide to up the ante and ask, are you in the room with us now? It moves to yes and circles the word. Can you see us? Yes. Can you see our underwear? Yes. All right. I'm wearing white boxers. They have stripes. What color are the stripes? Holy shit, R-E-D, red. I pull up the waistband of my boxers to show that my stripes are indeed red. Everybody laughs. What color underwear is Adam wearing? W-H-I-T-E, white. Adam pulls up the waistband of his underwear. He's wearing your basic Fruit of the Looms. Everybody laughs some more. What color underwear is Marietta wearing? B-L-U-E. She pulls up the waistband of her pants. Yep, they're blue. We laugh some more. What color underwear is Scott wearing? U-G-L-Y. Ugly? He pulls up the waistband of his boxers and they're black and orange plaid. Everybody howls with laughter. Our guards are down. We're embracing the spirits, inviting them inside. Next, Adam wants to talk to Jimi Hendrix. Adam's a guitar virtuoso. In fact, his acoustic guitar is sitting there in its open case on the kitchen floor. He'd been playing it earlier. He and I had sung Blue Christmas, me doing my best Elvis impression. I'll have a blue Christmas without you. Thank you very much. I'll be so blue, just thinking about you. Decorations of red on a green Christmas tree. I didn't realize then that last line was a macabre foreshadowing. You'll see what I mean. Adam asks the spirits if they can put Jimmy on. The board says yes. We trade places. I sit down and touch the credit card. Adam stands and asks the questions. Is that you, Jimmy? It says yes. He starts asking Jimmy all these biographical questions. The board's getting them all right. Adam is amazed. I mean, obscure questions like what year Jimmy was born, what year certain albums came out, who sat in on certain sessions. Jimmy's getting every one right. And then Adam drops the bomb. Jimmy, you think you can play my guitar? We all fall silent. All you got to do is pluck one string, Jimmy. Can you do that? And it shoots to yes. I mean, with such force, the credit card flies off the paper sometimes. We have to put it back on and touch it again. It shoots back to yes. It keeps circling it faster and faster in tight little loops. And we're all going, yes, 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 yes. And all of a sudden, I kid you not, Robin's little black kitten comes running in from the dark living room, makes a beeline for that guitar and starts smacking at one of the strings. Everybody freaked. Marietta's up flipping on the lights, blowing out the candles, and Robin's yelling at me, going, I hate you, Jeff Stanley. I was never scared of this house before, and now you've made it haunted. And in the middle of that, we smell something burning. I'm like, what is that? It smells like a fireplace. And Robin and got in the fireplace. And we run and look in the living room, and the freaking Christmas tree is on fire. They had this little red scented candle that somehow had gotten knocked over. And all this molten wax was running onto the tree and setting it aflame. Decorations of red on a green Christmas tree. We got it out. And then I marched into that kitchen, followed up that piece of paper and threw it in the trash, vowing never to play with homemade Ouija boards ever again. From then on, strictly store-bought. I have here an original 1917 William Cole Ouija board from Baltimore, where they used to make Ouija boards, and a 1920 planchette. Almost a century old. Pass those around, check them out. Be careful, they are fragile, you can check them out. I bought that 2 years ago at the Chad's Ford Antique Mall with my wife Bidisha. It makes quite a conversation piece in our home. Bidisha's Indian American. We got married 3 years ago in a full Hindu ceremony in Kolkata, in the state of West Bengal in eastern India, where our parents were born. We're raising our 2-year-old son Ishan in a bilingual home. People always ask what his name means. Ishan means third eye of Shiva. Shiva is the Lord of Time. Some would say the Lord of Death. Others would more delicately put it, Lord of the finite physical world, which must one day pass away. Shiva is usually depicted as having blue skin, as though covered in ash, symbolizing his defeat of death. He's also usually depicted as having his third eye closed. That's the spiritual eye. That's the eye that sees through all of this Maya, illusion, to the reality underneath. We all have one. It's just that for most of us, it's closed up tight until the day we die. And when Shiva opens his third eye, man, you better run for cover, because it means he's about to kick some mustachioed Indian demon's ass. The three of us are now frequent visitors to Kolkata to visit the kinfolks. One of my favorite haunts there has become South Park Street Cemetery. The deceased are British military or employees of the British East India Company. It opened in 1767 and was originally called the Great Burial Ground. The first burial was for a guy named, are you ready? Mr. John Wood. And he was a writer. His tombstone's not there anymore. It was demolished to make way for a road. The voiceless future strikes the Wood family yet again, even in the other hemisphere. South Park Street is a lot like Laurel Hill Cemetery, and that most of the monuments are big and elegant. It's a quiet, peaceful, meditative place. It's a spot to relax and wander the verdant pastoral lanes. Like Laurel Hill, the staff must constantly wage an endless war against decay. When I was last there, I came upon a particularly tragic tombstone. Here are interred the mortal remains of Catherine Bagshaw, age 37, also Rebecca Bagshaw, age 16, wife and eldest daughter of John Bagshaw, ESQ, Esquire, of Calcutta, who on 19th October 1820 were, in one sad moment, drowned at the upsetting of a pinnace, that's a rowboat, near the Armenian Ghats. The afflicted husband and father, suddenly bereaved of the loss of his beloved, looks forward through the merits of his Redeemer to a reunion with them in a better world. And he desires at once to learn and to enforce upon others this lesson of wisdom. Ghats are those great big staircases leading down into the holy Ganges where people bathe. Some of them are connected to a temple for sacred dips. Some of them are where cremations happen. The Armenian Ghat was a loading dock. It was built by the Armenian merchants who settled there. They're long gone, but I found out the Armenian Ghat is still there. So I went and took a few pictures of it. It was my way of saying a quick prayer for Becky and Kathy before I flew home. I wanted them to know they aren't forgotten. Then there is the haunted Dennison Crypt. Mrs. Dennison and her baby daughter both died and were buried together on September 30th, 1806. Her husband, Captain Dennison, was united to them in death just 16 days later. No reasons are given. Their crypt is also called the Bleeding Grave because sometimes small red droplets of a liquid resembling blood appear on it. Is it any wonder that this young family's hearts are still bleeding and they just want desperately for someone to notice their pain? Another family gone. Then there is my personal favorite, the grave of Hindu Stuarts, also known as Major General Charles Stuart. Hindu Stuart abandoned Christianity and adopted Hinduism. He prayed daily at his home altar. He bathed in the holy Ganges. He wore Indian clothes when he was off duty. He wrote essays in British newspapers praising Indian civilization. He mocked British women for wearing confining whalebone corsets and iron dress hoops and urged them instead to wear saris. I wonder if Becky and Kathy were wearing iron dress hoops the day they fell out of a rowboat and sank like stones to the bottom of the holy Ganges. Hindu Stuart was given a Christian burial, but several devotional statues of Hindu gods were placed in his casket with him. And his entire monument looks like a Hindu temple. Normally that would be an oxymoron because Hindus don't usually have tombstones as they are usually cremated. Unless, of course, you're a sadhu, in which case you just announce that you're dead while you're still alive and walk off into the sunset. Sadhus are considered to be living saints. They are highly revered monks who spent years meditating in the mountains. They renounce their earthly possessions, their families. Part of becoming a sadhu involves participating in your own mock funeral, symbolically watching yourself die. You must also register with the government and have yourself declared legally dead. You abandon your name. Your new name is a secret sound that's whispered to you that can never be repeated aloud. The Indian government doesn't even include sadhus in census data. Today there are some 5 million sadhus walking around India who are legally unaccounted for. They are quite literally the living dead. Hold this for a second. They cover themselves in soil and ash to symbolize death and decay, just like the Lord Shiva whom they revere. Thank you. Some of them show their self-abnegation by standing on one leg for years on end, or by walking around for years with one hand raised in the air that they never take down. They also grow some killer weed and hash to enhance their religious experience. Hey, I'm okay with that. I'm cool with using drugs to help open your third eye. Speaking of having your third eye open, best time of year for me is my annual colonoscopy. That opium-derived anesthesia, man. It's only once every 12 months, but I swear I'm addicted to it. That magical 10 seconds where you're counting down and then all of a sudden, bam! Smithereens. You wake up feeling like $1,000,000, and a nurse is standing there offering you a glass of juice and a cookie. That's what I hope it's like when we die and wake up in the afterlife. Also, I love malaria pills. You start taking those a week before you leave for India, and pretty soon the awesome dreams start. Although sometimes you do have a nightmare. In one of them, I'm on this mountain trail, and I come upon a little shack. Like one of those shacks they have on cross-country ski trails. You can go inside and get hot chocolate, maybe warm yourself by a roaring fire. It's like that, only in summertime. And I walk in, and there's a cocktail party going on. Everybody's standing around talking, drinking. I see a lot of familiar faces, but everyone's ignoring me. It's like I'm invisible. Everybody's got a martini, and I love martinis, and I want one. I look all around, and I don't see a bartender. I do see a sign on the wall that says, "The best martinis," as though maybe it's an ad for gin or vodka. Only it's been defaced so that it reads, "Come here for the best martinis on the beach," which is weird because we were nowhere near the beach. So I'm looking all around. I don't see a bartender. I do see a hot tub in the corner, and I wonder why no one's inside. So I look in, and there's this big, long, black snake roiling around in the clear, briny liquid. He's got bright yellow diamond patterns down his back. And I jump back and scream, "Oh my God, there's a snake in the hot tub!" And everyone's ignoring me. I'm scared of him, but I say, he's going to die in that hot tub. And I think maybe I can find a stick or a ski pole to gingerly pick him up and toss him out the door. But then I go, wait a minute. What if he's poisonous and tries to bite me? And then, as if on cue, as if he can read my thoughts, his head shoots up out of the water and he looks straight at me, revealing his telltale diamond-shaped head. And I know from school, and you probably know that a diamond-shaped head means that he's poisonous, right? So I stand there frozen, hoping he won't strike. And he does strike. With such force, with such ferocity, that he comes flying out of the hot tub like an arrow, shoots across the room at me, bites my foot, and ricochets out under the door. And I scream, "Oh my God, the snake bit me!" And everyone's ignoring me. So I whip out my cell phone to call 911. Now, I have to stop for just a minute. I know what you're thinking. I can tell you exactly what you're thinking. Freudian anxiety dream, snake equals penis. I don't know if that means I'm afraid of my own penis. I'm afraid of black penises. I thought long and hard about it, and I'm just not sure. Now, we can also take a Jungian approach and say that perhaps the snake is an archetype. Maybe in our Judeo-Christian culture, he represents the tempting serpent. Or maybe he's Satan. Or he could be just a specter, a version of the Grim Reaper, a specter of death coming to claim me. I'm not really sure. At any rate, I whip out my cell phone to call 911, and I can't get a signal. Oh, yeah. So I throw open the door, thinking maybe I can run outside and get a signal out there, and I look up, and there's a tiger charging at me. And this thing is huge, like a horse-sized tiger. In fact, it's wearing a saddle. Now, I have to stop again. I am not sure what's going on with the recurring black and yellow imagery in the nightmare. Snake's black and yellow, the tiger's black and yellow. So I tried free associating. A lot of times you can do that when you've had a particularly freaky, haunting dream. You can find out what your brain is telling you. All right? Highways are black and yellow. I like road trips. New York City taxi cabs are black and yellow. I lived in New York City for years. Box of Kodak film is black and yellow. I'm a filmmaker. But I'm not particularly frightened of any of these things, so I'm still working on that. At any rate, I run back inside and go, "Oh my God, there's a tiger wearing a saddle!" And And that gets everybody's attention. Everybody goes, huh, what? And they come running. We're barricading the door and blocking the windows, and I look out, and I see the tiger's head reeling. Thunk. He falls over dead. At first I'm confused, but then I realize the snake bit him, inadvertently saving my life. I'm elated, but then I go, wait a minute. If the venom killed the tiger that fast, I'm going to be dead in about 3 seconds. So what was the point? And that's when I wake up in terror, cold sweat, staring at the ceiling. I've had the death dream. And that doesn't happen very often. And I still haven't fully figured it out yet, but if I'm honest with myself, I have to face that this is probably a nightmare about my biological father and about my own fatherhood. I didn't really know my biological father. I didn't know he existed until I was 22. And the main thing you need to know about him is that he drank himself to death. He died of acute alcoholism, and he did it on purpose. Also, you need to know that I still harbor a lot of anger and resentment toward him. And also, despite the fact that he didn't raise me, we have some things in common. He was a guitar player. He liked old country songs. He was an entertainer. He was a performer. I'm an entertainer and a performer. I like old country songs. Also, we both like to drink. Only he didn't drink martinis. He probably never had a martini in his life. He drank the cheapest bourbon he could get his hands on in great quantities. Sometimes I think the reason I like martinis so much is that they make me feel better than him. More sophisticated, more intelligent, but really underneath. It's the exact same thing. And then I thought of something else. Black and yellow, a cirrhotic liver. Black and yellow are the colors I imagine my father's liver being on the day that he died. And I still don't have it all figured out, but all I know is after that nightmare, I never wanted to drink another martini again for the rest of my life. For 2 days. And then on the 3rd day, I slipped back in. Would you like a martini? No. Would you like a martini? Who would like a martini? Come on down, it's yours. Get on down here. I bring it to you, but I don't want to spill it. If you spill it, it'll be your fault. It's dirty, a good kind of dirty. Otherwise, it's clean. How is it?
Perfect.
Oh, thank you. Did you guys see the yahrzeit boards upstairs? You know, the yahrzeit boards. Well, if you don't know, a yahrzeit is a candle. It means anniversary lights. It's also sometimes called a soul candle. You light one every year on the anniversary of a loved one's death. Usually a relative, a parent. In the 20th century, well, instead of candles, you might have seen the lists of names upstairs on the plaques just inside the front doors on your side. There's a small light bulb next to each name. Every year, it's switched on the anniversary of that person's death. We should all be so lucky as to have someone around years and years from now who remembers every once in a while to light an electric soul candle for us. Like we've done here tonight. I've lit one for each of you. I bet you think I've been free associating all this time, but I'm not. I promise you I'm not. This entire show follows a tripartite structure going back 3,000 years to ancient Greece, so don't even try. And we're nearing the climax. I came here for something tonight. I came here for the most elusive thing of all in this life. Comfort. Proof. I kept promise. I don't just want to be told it by a clergyman or a book or a website or some barefoot freak in a whacked out show. I want to see it. That's what houses of worship are for. So why don't we stroll on into one and get right on down to the solid bedrock bottom of things. The foundation of religion. Here we are, so let's rock. There is a grand design that has brought us all here together tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Your attendance has been divinely predetermined, and I can prove it. You don't believe me? I have consulted radionics experts and polarity practitioners from around the world. They have examined this entire 3-story building, and they have determined that there are, shall we say, certain presences in a little shoe. And that these presences have a vortex, as it were. A gateway, if you will. An entrance to the underworld, if I may. And that entry point is right back there. I need 3 brave, bold, beautiful, good-looking volunteers to help me reach across to beautiful Zion. Who's in? 1, 2, I need a 3rd. You, sir, on the end. Why don't you guys head on back? Where's the Ouija board? Thank you very much. Now, I know what you're all thinking, but Jeff, contacting the dead is strictly forbidden in the Jewish tradition. How are you getting away with this in a synagogue? Well, we're not in the synagogue. We're in the basement. Also, I did clear it with the congregation first. They're all dead, but they said it would be okay. Volunteers, what are your names? Tara, love your awesome earring. And what's your name?
Mel.
Mel?
And Mike.
And Mike? Awesome. Now, we used to sit at 3 chairs, but we kind of found it's easier if 2 people just sit and put it on their laps. So how about, let's do boy, girl. How about you and you for starters? Why don't you have a seat? And you have a seat. And I'll be with you in just a second. Hold on to this for just a moment. And you guys get comfy. The boom box, or as I like to call it, the doom box, will play a selection of songs from SolarFM.com's Doom channel to get us in the mood. Yeah. The mirror, or as I like to call it, the psychomantium, is here for a reason. It's how they see us. Reflected surfaces, in case you don't know. It's how they know exactly who's here. It's how they've seen my show. We'll just put that right there. Questioner. You can be the questioner. Come on over here. Here's how you will begin. Will you please read this aloud to the audience?
We come here tonight in the spirit of peace and friendship, seeking to converse with the spirit world. If anyone not evil would like to come and have a chat with us, please feel free. Remember, the audience is counting on you, so knock them dead.
Any questions? Great. All right, so, have either of you guys done this before? I have not. Okay, so why don't, years ago? Oops, sorry. So why don't we try this? Just put all of your fingers, all 8 fingers on each side of that, just lightly on the planchette, keep your elbows slightly raised, and we'll see if anyone's out there who wants to talk to us tonight. I can tell you some of the history of my experiences here later, but let's see if they're there at all. Hello, is anyone there who wants to talk to us? Are you there tonight? Hello? Anybody there who wants to talk to us tonight? Not moving at all. Okay, you know what? I'm going to warm up the board. Oh, there it goes. No, go. Keep going, keep going. You there? Awesome. Now, normally we'd look through that little window, it would stop over a letter, but we found out it's dark in here, hard to do that. So we'll go with the arrow. We'll just let it point. So is there anyone that would like to talk to us? For first timers, you guys are doing great. Can you speak with us tonight? Hello? Is there anyone out there who wants to talk to us? It's not moving, is it? Okay, why don't you get up? Would you mind getting up for just a second? I'm good, and you can come back down. It's always done it. I'll warm it up and then get out of the picture because I don't want to impact this in any way. Go ahead, both of you. Go ahead, both of us. Is there anybody that wants to talk to us tonight? Hello? Anybody there? I think you can be a little heavier because you're popping up in the air a little bit. Can you say hello to us? You're going to spell a letter, I take it. You're going to A. Then what? A-O? Oh, you're good. It's really moving. You've never done this before? All right. A-O... A-O-T. Are those initials? A-O-T. Is that initials? Anything? A-O-T. Can you spell it again? We're a little bit confused. A. It's really confusing. A-T. A-T-A. Are you A-T-A? Hello? A-T-A. Does that mean anything to anybody in the room? Not initials or anything? A-T-A. Can you tell us anything else? You know, I have a question for you. Did you see the show? Wow, it's cooking. Did you see the show tonight? Yes. Most important question. What did you think of it? Did you like the show? C. C. C-L. I think that's an L. C-L. Okay. On fire. C-L. Is that an A? C-L-A. C-L-A-P. C-L. Are you spelling clap? P-P. Yes, go on. C-L-A-P-P. C-L-A-P-P-S. All right. Are you spelling claps? P. P again. P-P. Clap. Clap. P. Look at that. It's shooting P-P-P-P-P. Okay. I'm assuming you're saying clapping because you loved it. Is that correct? I've gotten a lot of mixed responses. I've gotten hated it. I've gotten it was okay. Then I've gotten fantastic, loved it. Listen, let me ask you the question. Would you like to speak with us electrically? Have you ever done that? A lot of times they don't know what I mean by that. Would you like to speak with us electrically? Yeah, a lot of times it hesitates. Yeah, maybe it's going to yes. You guys don't break the connection. Keep talking and see if it spells things. I have here a PSB-87 investigational transcommunication research device.
What do we
think?
We're on an E.
So listening into EVPs, also known as electronic voice phenomena, also known as imaginary voices after their discoverer, Constantine Vallier. You might have seen him on TV. We'll see if it works. I've been experimenting with it. Give me just a moment to turn it on.
EHS. EHSR.
What's that here?
That's another valve.
Yes.
Smell that again.
I'm going to record this also for just 5 minutes.
That's fancy. Are we upsetting you? No, good. Are you comfortable with this here, though?
All right. We'll see if we can talk to us next. Sorry. What's it doing down here? Anything?
It's doing yes and no pretty accurately. We asked if we were offending it. He said no. We asked if we said yes.
Are you alone? Are there others with you? Stay, keep working your board. If the rest of you want to have a seat, you're welcome to, or you can stay there. I'm just going to wrap up. There's a couple more things before you return to the land of the living. I have found that life is full of magic and meaning if you just open your eyes. All three of them. Feel free to stick around, say hi, fix yourself a drink. Contact the dead some more with our toys. I can explain more to you about what I know, what's been happening here all summer. Check out the monuments we created together. The Bagshaws, the Dennisons, Hindu Stewart, Lola's house. This one's called Toby Keith Goes to India. I wrote the song. One's about cowboys on the plains. Yeah, I once wrote songs. One's about cowgirls and their games. But there's one thing I can say to you with pride. Although my ego is still very much alive, I got nothing, nothing's how I survive. I am an American son. Ooh, American son. When you see me covered in my ochre and my ash, yeah, when you see me renouncing all the guitars for all that hash, you might think that it all stops there with my high, but take another stolen glance into my eyes. I'm carrying the karma of the world up to the sky. I am an American son. Ooh, American son. Ooh, ooh. Well, you can't see me on the banks down at the Ganges,
while you stand in line at the city bank down on your knees. Standing on one leg, got my hand raised to the hot sun. One day it'll come to you, my renunciation ain't just in fun. Shiva is the one American Sadhu. Ooh, American Sadhu. Don't follow me. Don't learn the hidden language of the hidden. Don't follow me. If you're just a summer camper out looking for some thrills. Cause I watched my own funeral, saw myself get lowered down. And then me and the sannyasa headed on out of town. But my name's not Toby Keith, it's a secret sound. I am an American Sadhu. Ooh, American Sadhu. Thank you very much. Get home safe. Applause is like making love to a dead person. You can never give too much.